Okay guys, welcome back to Racing Direct. Now, the Chinese Grand Prix has come and gone. There were some very interesting moments, obviously very predictable winner. The one incident in particular that I really want to get into though is obviously that bizarre crash between Lance Stroll and Daniel Ricciardo. So make sure you hit subscribe, like this video, leave those comments. Let's jump right into it. So after the first safety car restart, obviously everyone's bunching up, getting ready to go, and there was an extremely bizarre incident going into that tight hairpin in the final sector where there was a bit of a lockup from the driver in front. I believe it was Fernando Alonso originally, but everyone else behind him seemed to get the memo. Okay, we've got to brake a little bit. Of course, we're bunching up, getting ready to go again for the green flag. The only driver who didn't get the memo was Lance Stroll, and it was an extremely bizarre crash. Now, yes, as I mentioned, if you check telemetries, you can see that everybody in front is braking. Stroll, however, just didn't do it until the exact moment. It was way too late, and he'd already hit Ricciardo. It wasn't even a love tap either. He piled into the back of him, of course, raised the car way up in the ground, destroyed Stroll's front wing, ruined the rear diffuser for Ricciardo, and then, of course, he hit him so hard he went into the back of Piastri and destroyed his floor as well. It was just a terrible, terrible crash that was completely avoidable. Now, this was so obviously Lance Stroll's fault, and I cannot believe that he was surprised he got a penalty. Even as a Canadian myself, it's getting extremely hard to defend him at this point, because even if you listen to Ricciardo's post-race interview, I mean, he obviously had some very choice words for Lance Stroll, but Stroll went onto the radio immediately to say, "This guy just slammed on the brakes, what an idiot." Well, yes, Lance, that's exactly what you're supposed to do in a tight hairpin, especially during a safety car restart when everybody's bunching up. But the main thing that was pointed out by Ricciardo, and I'm sure everybody else noticed, was that Stroll wasn't even paying attention to the cars in front of him in this braking zone. That was how he could have avoided the whole incident altogether. It looked like Stroll was peeking over towards the apex. I'm not even really sure why, especially when all the cars are bunching up like this. There's just no reason to be looking over there. And of course, it caught him by surprise when everyone in front of him braked, and he had no time to react until it was too late. And you thought that maybe after the whole thing blew over, then Stroll kind of realized, like, okay, yeah, definitely my fault. But even after he received the 10-second penalty, he was still going, "This is ridiculous. I don't understand it." In his post-race interview, he just said, well, it was more like a Constantina effect, and everyone's kind of bundled up, and I was the unfortunate victim of it. Well, again, everybody got the memo to brake except for Lance Stroll, so that's not really a viable excuse in my opinion. If he was paying attention to the cars in front of him, looking where he was going, this would have never happened. Now, obviously, it's not too surprising to see why he got a 10-second penalty. It could honestly have been more. I'm surprised he didn't get a grid drop for Miami, because he essentially ruined the races for Ricciardo and Piastri as well. Now, as mentioned, again, Ricciardo had some really choice words in his post-race interview. He literally just said F that guy, because he was just completely flabbergasted that Stroll was actually trying to blame Ricciardo for the incident and calling him an idiot over the radio. Ricciardo even said he'd calm down after the fact until he heard Stroll's words, and that just made his blood boil. And then he made it very clear that, look, Stroll's not even paying attention. He's not looking where he's going. He's not hitting the brakes. He's not following the proper procedures for a safety car restart. Now, just to play devil's advocate in this scenario, yes, I think we could pretty much all agree this was completely on Lance Stroll. This crash would have never happened if he was paying better attention. However, I do think this whole thing could have been avoided to begin with different safety car restart procedures. Now, as of right now, the car in front essentially gets to dictate when the green goes. He can decide when he hits the gas and decides to release the field. I think that's a bit of a problem because obviously he can slow down as much as he wants just before the start-finish line or way before the start-finish line. As soon as the safety car is out of sight, that first place driver essentially controls the field, can do whatever he wants. And it can honestly cause these bunch ups that we really don't want to see, because all it does is lead to another safety car and more crashes. If you guys remember that ridiculous accident we had in Mugello, I think it was during the COVID season. That was the only time we raced at Mugello. But yeah, 4 or 5 cars bunching into each other because someone at the front braked and nobody behind them had really any time to react, no chance, no places to go. It was just a bad look, and this is going to continue to happen because no one really knows what's going on at the front. It's incredibly hard to understand. I think it'd be so much better if everyone either goes, look, single file or double file, doesn't really matter to me. You go once you hit the start finish line. That's when it goes green for everybody. I think that's a pretty logical change, honestly. I don't think that would ruffle too many feathers, and I think we avoid some of these strange incidents like we had with Stroll and Ricciardo. Not to take any of the blame away from Stroll, as I mentioned, it's clearly his fault in this scenario. However, these incidents can definitely be avoided in the future with some tweaks to the safety car restart procedures. But let me know what you guys think of that bizarre crash. I think this is going to boil over for a little bit more time to come too, just considering how angry Ricciardo was at Stroll. I think there's still going to be some bad blood boiling in Miami, but give me those comments down below. Let me know what you thought of that particular accident or anything else in the Chinese Grand Prix. You might jump into it a bit more this week, but let me know, guys. Give me those thoughts. As always, make sure you hit subscribe and like, and we'll see you next time on Racing Direct.